Death, death, death. You think a lot about death when you get diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And, at this point, with everything I've lived through in my entire life, I've faced death a couple times. And, very consistently over the last nearly 16 months at this point. And you realize certain things when you're faced with the possibility of death. And that is that there's really two sides to it. So obviously there's the negative side, which is, dying, no longer being alive. And then there's the positive side, which is kind of you need to accept death in order to be able to live your life fully. Because if you're always afraid, you're holding yourself back. So, it's both good and bad. It's like, obviously, survival instinct, which is basically the fear of death, is really good because it's what has kept us alive as a species for, thousands and thousands of years. And in extreme situations, it's that survival instinct that keeps us alive. So it's definitely good to have a certain, degree of caution or fear when it comes to death. But on the other side, as I was saying, if you're too afraid of dying, you hold yourself back and you don't get to live the life that you want to live, that you deserve to live, because you're always afraid of dying, always afraid that something bad will happen. So there's both a good and a bad to death. And, I've had a lot of time to think over the last 16 months, and, I've had some good and bad thoughts when it comes to death. And as I mentioned before, at this point, I've faced death quite literally a few times in my life, and I've thought a lot about it over the last 16 months. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe my approach, my view of death is holding me back. Because, once you face death a couple times, you realize, like, yeah, okay, of course, I don't want to die, but at the same time, I can't let fear of death hold me back. I need to live my fullest life, and that means accepting death as a possibility. So at this point, I'm very comfortable saying death does not scare me. I could die tomorrow, and of course, part of me would be sad because I don't want to die. I don't want to leave all my loved ones behind. But at the same time, if it's my time, it's my time, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally comfortable with that. So I'm not afraid of death. However, why I say it might be holding me back is because even though I'm not afraid of death, I have been fighting very hard over the last 16 months to not die. And the main reason for that is because I know it would be very, very difficult for my wife if I died. It would also be very difficult for my family if I died, my closest friends. So they're the main reason why I've been fighting so hard to stay alive. Of course, I don't want to die. I want to live the longest, fullest, most amazing life that I can because I know eventually we all die anyway. While I'm here, why not make the most of it? That's always been my approach. So even though death does not scare me, I don't plan on dying anytime soon, but I'm kind of been thinking lately, and maybe not necessarily worrying, just contemplating the possibility that fighting so hard to stay alive for those people that I love and who love me is perhaps holding me back. Because if I refuse to consider death as a possibility, which is the approach I've taken, because I believe that belief itself is incredibly powerful and can literally mean the difference between life and death. That's why I've chosen to believe there is no way this is going to kill me. I will be cured. I will live a very long, very happy, very fulfilling life. But on the back end of that, it's kind of in a way, it's kind of a denial of death. And even though, I've accepted in the sense that it doesn't scare me, I haven't accepted it in the sense that, I haven't fully surrendered. Not to say surrender to death, give up, abandon, and just let myself die. I mean, surrender in the sense that complete surrender of like, whatever is meant to happen is going to happen, and that is okay. If I'm meant to live, awesome. If I'm meant to die, awesome. It sucks that my loved ones will have to suffer as a result of losing me, but if that's what's meant to happen, that's what's meant to happen, and that's what should happen. And that's why I've been kind of contemplating that recently. Maybe this fierce determination that I have, this unwillingness to even consider death as a possibility, could actually be a negative thing. And I think like that's the issue. Like with most things, there's a positive and a negative to everything. And it's the same thing for this. Yes, the positive of my mindset is by refusing to even consider death as a possibility, it's increasing my odds of survival, which is great, of course. On the downside, by completely denying it, it's kind of creating this inability to fully surrender. Yes, I've mostly surrendered, but I'm still kind of holding on because I have this belief of no matter what happens, I will survive. And I don't know, I'm just wondering if maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a thing. And that's the thing, it's like over the last 16 months, or nearly 16 months at this point, I've had a lot of time to think and contemplate both about death and just any and all topics you can think of. And I've come to the realization that there is no complete truth. There are shades of truth, there are versions of truth that can be true to you and untrue to other people, which is why I've been able to believe I will survive this and believe it with every fiber of my being. And there's other people, such as medical professionals, who are experts at this, who are like, you are going to die. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I'm able to accept their viewpoint, but I'm also able to choose not to share it. So I realized that truth is very subjective. It comes down to what you choose to believe, what you choose to believe that truth is. And that's kind of the same thing with death. It's like, I've chosen to believe that I will not die of this. But at the same time, I can't help but wonder, is that holding me back? Is the whole point of this to just surrender fully to absolutely everything and not try to maintain control? And if that is the case, if that's the whole point of everything, the reason why I got cancer, the reason why I'm going through all this, by choosing to believe there is no way in hell this is going to kill me, it's holding me back from fully surrendering. And as a result of that, the cancer will continue to stick around. So ironically, there's a possibility that by choosing to believe I'm not going to die, it's actually causing me to die. It's kind of a mindfuck when you think about it, but that's the thing. When you have this amount of time to contemplate things, like, I would like to believe that these types of topics are kind of, more profound than everyday things that most people think about, like me, that I used to think about back before I was diagnosed. And when you think about profound things like this, you start to realize, like, there is no truth. Everything is subjective. There is no way of knowing anything for certain. You can never know if you're doing the right or the wrong thing, but at the same time, there is no right or wrong. So sometimes you get to the point where you're just like, nothing makes sense. It's just complete chaos. And yeah, that can be scary, but at the same time, that's where surrender comes in. If everything is complete chaos, nothing is true, everything is subjective, then the only solution is complete surrender. Whatever is meant to happen will happen. And if, there is no greater power or greater meaning for anything, well, then it's all just random anyway, so it doesn't really matter what you do or what you believe. So, I keep coming back to this like, yes, complete surrender is the answer. But at the same time, it's very, very difficult for me to consider the possibility of, fuck it, if I'm meant to die, I'm meant to die, and just abandon that belief that I've built so strongly inside myself that no matter what, this is not going to kill me. It's difficult, and I keep kind of going back between those two of what should I be doing? Complete surrender. If I'm meant to die tomorrow, I'll die tomorrow. Sucks for my loved ones, but they'll survive. If this is what was meant to happen to me, it's what was meant to happen to them. Everything happens exactly the way that it's meant to, so I have no reason to feel that. And it's just like this duality that keeps going on in my head. And it's just, I don't know what the answer is. And I don't really know if there is an answer. And I think it just comes back to what I was saying before of you need to decide what you choose to believe. And up until this point, I've chosen to believe I am going to survive this. I don't know how exactly, but there is no doubt in my mind that I will survive. And now I'm like, well, maybe the answer is complete surrender and just accepting death. Not in the sense of I give up, like I was saying before, just in the sense of whatever's meant to happen, whether that's life, whether that's death, whether that's something completely different I haven't considered. I just need to completely surrender to everything. Doesn't mean do absolutely nothing. It just means do what you feel is right, but surrender all expectations. Surrender all belief of what the outcome will be. Surrender everything. So just do what feels right and see what happens. And I've done that to a certain degree. I just haven't managed to do it 100% just because of that belief that I've built within myself of no matter what, I will survive. So, as you can tell, I'm very ambivalent. I don't really know what the right thing to do is. And maybe I never will know, but it's just something I've been thinking about lately, so I thought I'd share it. Maybe you've experienced something like this in the past. Maybe you are experiencing that now. Maybe you will in the future. I don't know. I think we all kind of go through these periods in our lives. And it's just when you go through something intense like I am, you tend to, take the time to really contemplate the meaning of life and deeper things like this. So, yeah, just wanted to share that. So hopefully this wasn't too confusing because I feel like I went back and forth a lot. But yeah, I just felt it was important to share it. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.